Hello everybody, this is an October 2019 budget Mystic Mine burn deck profile. So like my Exodia deck, in this Mystic Mine deck, it cuts out all of the interactivity of the game. Your opponent really can't do anything like activate monster effects or attack, and meanwhile you're just slowly chipping away at their life points via effect damage. So this is a budget version of the deck, which you can pick up for pretty cheap because almost all the cards here are commons or can be commons. So there are a few tough matchups that this deck playing against. There are a few tough matchups like Sky Striker is one. I mean, they normally main some kind of Twin Twisters or MST, and they have a lot of forms for removal that are a lot of spells too. And Pendulum Magician is another one. They can rely on their Pendulum spell effects and sometimes out your Mystic Mine. Trickstar is another matchup that is pretty tough because their burn effects also affect you. You know, it's another burn strategy, and they're also continuous, so they will get around your Mystic Mine because they are not activated effects. So that Candina really hurts this deck because you're activating a lot of traps, and you'll just, your life points will be eaten away at every time. But versus any kind of standard, monster effect, any kind of, I'm just thinking a lot of decks that I have made videos of, this deck would be super annoying to play against. So let's begin. So 3 Planet Pathfinder for our first card. So this is just one of 3 normal summons in this deck that can get you your field spell. I mean, the games that you don't see Mystic Mine are really rough because you have very little form of defense, so you need that floodgate to stop your opponent from attacking. So this just gets you, terraforming, Metaverse, plus 3 of these guys. So 3 Cardi. This is just your Pot of Greed in the form of a normal summon. So just make sure you set your traps before you tribute this card, so you can have cards in the field before it becomes the end phase. But this is just for a little bit of draw power in the form of a normal summon. And our last monsters are 3 Mikion the Time Lord. So this card, I've always thought it was a little bit unfair, a little bit too good, because it's pretty much a free way to have your opponent's life points. So it can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, and you take no damage from attacks involving this card. So you just summon it, you normal summon it without tributing. If you control no monsters, you attack into your opponent's monster, and then you just have their life points at the end of the battle phase. So if it's at the start of the duel and you're cutting their life points down by 4,000, that can really ease the burden of the burn strategy, because tackling 4,000 damage is a lot easier than tackling something like 8,000 damage. There is a downside to this card. It will be shuffled into the deck during your standby phase, so normally that's okay to leave it on the field just to have that kind of presence until your next turn, but that will give your opponent a turn in this deck to have 1 monster on the field equal to this card. So your Mystic Mine might be blown up, so watch out for that. So spells, 3 Mystic Mine. This card, just like my Exodia deck, is just way too good. I mean, they summon a bunch of monsters, then you activate this card sometimes during their turn with Metaverse, and they realize they can't do anything. They link away and have a link monster in the extra zone, maybe a few more link monsters or something like that. They think they can do something. They try to summon a few more monsters, and they're just looking for ways to out your Mystic Mine. They're looking for a solution, but they really can't find it because, unless they draw that MST, it's not happening. And, running Dark Bribe as well, this card is just super hard to get around and is just kind of overpowered. So 3 Pot of Duality. This is, just like any deck that runs Pot of Duality, it's the ace card. Like I said, my Exodia deck profile is just super important, especially with no extravagance in this deck. Just seeing that option of 3 cards instead of 1 card, just always an important card, Pot of Duality. 1 Chain Strike, which is limited, so playing 1 of this guy. This card can be pretty devastating. Inflict 400 damage to your opponent times the chain link number of this card. So activate that Just Desserts, Chain Secret Barrel, Chain Secret Blast, chain this card as the 4th chain link. 1,600 damage on top of whatever you're doing with those 3 other cards. It can sometimes win you the game right there, especially if you have your opponent's life points with the Time Lord. And 1 Terraforming to search the Mystic Mine. So traps, 3 Secret Blast, as well as 3 Secret Barrel. So these cards are very similar. These are some of the best burn cards in the game. So inflict 300 damage to to your opponent for each card they control, and this one is 200 for each card they control or in their hand. So no matter what deck they're playing, they're going to have cards on the field. Something like, some spells, some back row, a field spell, some kind of monsters, maybe no back row, but something on the field, something in their hand. They're going to have, these cards will affect your opponent. So this is pretty guaranteed ways to inflict burn damage to your opponent. This card does have a second effect too. If it's popped, inflict 1,000 damage. So a little bit of bonus right there. So 3 Just Desserts. This is an extremely OG classic card that I'm happy I can finally use these old copies of. So 500 damage for each monster your opponent has on the field. So again, just hit them before they link away, or they're still summoning monsters, like maybe I can out that Mystic Mine. Maybe if I summon this monster, it'll do something. But no, there's really just no solution to the Mystic Mine. It's just way too powerful. And before they know it, they have a bunch of monsters on the field. And you just activate this card, inflict like 2,500 damage. So 3 Reckless Greed. So hopefully you can string these together and only skip 2 draw phases instead of multiple. But this is just a little bit of extra draw power, no extravagance. You need a few more cards in your hand just to get those burn effects. Because after you use 1 burn card, that's kind of the problem with the burn strategy, is that it doesn't really stall the game or advance. Get rid of their cards at all. So if you don't have the cards in your hand to inflict that burn damage, you really need that draw power, because without those cards, or once they're gone, I guess, you're pretty much kind of screwed there. So 3 Dark Bribe. This is just to protect your Mystic Mines, and also stop any critical spells and traps. And again, that drawing that your opponent is doing after this card resolves is really not too bad at all, because Mystic Mine usually means that they can't do anything with their hand or with their field, and you do have some of these burn cards that inflict damage for their hand too, so not the worst combination of cards there. 2 Ring of Destruction. So this card, this is the eroded version, this is the OG version. This one, both of them, but this one will tell you that the game will not result in ties because you'll take the damage first. But this card is pretty good because not only does it do burn damage, which can sometimes be a lot of burn damage to your opponent, to you too, but hopefully you're winning via the burn damage that you have with the other cards too. But this card will actually get rid of your opponent's monsters, so this is one of the few forms of removal that you have in this deck. So you could bump this up to 3. I was trying this with 3. I put in another card instead that I haven't showed yet, but this is not too bad at 3, so try it at 3 if you want. So 2 Ojama Trio. This is to ensure that your opponent has more monsters than you, and just activate that Just Desert, inflict tons of damage. Just super annoying play right here. And even if they, not too many Link monsters can be made with tokens, and they aren't necessarily extra decking those Link spiders and those generic low Link climbing tools. So this is a pretty annoying card. So the card that I am messing around with is Threatening Roar. I was thinking about another one of these, Balance of Judgment, which I'll show in a second, but I decided to put in 2 Threatening Roar because if you don't have Mystic Mine on the field, and you don't have a card like Ring of Destruction, and if you don't see those cards, they can just attack into your life points, and it can be really, really hard to actually prevent that from happening, and they can win the game before you can even have a chance to pull off your burn strategy at all. So this card just delays the game a little bit. Some additional support to the Mystic Mine. I thought I would put it in because if you play with it without these Threatening Roars, it can be tough, as I've experienced. 1 Balance of Judgment. So this card is just a little bit of additional draw power. A lot of times with Mystic Mine, they're going to have a lot of cards on their side of the field, just because they are looking for ways to avoid discarding their hand at the end phase when they have too many cards in their hand. So a lot of times they're just stuck with sitting on a bunch of cards. So if they have a little bit more of a surplus than you do, you can draw some additional cards. And then the last card is the Metaverse to activate the Mystic Mine when your opponent doesn't really see it coming, and you can just keep that draw power going. So thank you for watching this budget Mystic Mine burn deck profile. So this deck can be seriously annoying to play against, so I hope this video helped, and this deck list helped to be annoying on a budget. So thanks, have a good one.